Hey there, my name is Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. For this week's episode, I talked to Grant Whiteoak of Heart to Gold. This Friday, the band puts out their third record, Free Help, through the label Memory Music, and I was absolutely thrilled to get Grant on the show to talk about the band, working on this record, getting into the studio with producer Will Yip, and talking about grinding it out as a touring rock band. This was a really special interview for Ear Coffee here, as Heart to Gold has been one of those bands that we've followed since the beginning. It's Grant of Heart to Gold. He's right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. Grant, how's it going?
Good. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm excited. Heart to Gold, we were talking about this off camera or before I started recording. Heart to Gold's been one of those bands that is one of those foundational live acts for Ear Coffee. We have, like, Aly and I were just talking about this. Two funny memories of seeing y'all perform. One was the Remo Drive Greatest Hits album release show, where you did like a front somersault off of the stage to like kick off the room, and just seeing like our first, like, it was like my first true DIY kind of band experience, and seeing something explode that way. And then it was standing in line outside of Ed's No Name at Midwest Music Fest, trying to get in to see y'all, and then joking like, we're going to get in just for them to stop playing. And right as we walked in the front door, we just said, all right, thank you, good night. And watch you guys set down your guitars. And we're just like, hell yeah. And just like walked in and got to leave. It was just so funny. Just because of just
that was interesting, because that night there was like a fight happening.
Oh, really?
Like in the crowd while we were playing, and we had to like cut some songs because there was this fight happening. We never really got to the bottom of it, but I just like, yeah, it was kind of like a let's get out of here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's one you don't want to stick around for. So we always ask people who are on the show the same kind of intro questions, which is how do you describe Heart to Gold to people? You know, usually people will be like, oh, you're in a band, that's cool, what's your band like? And what's that line you go to either, usually it's like a family member at Christmas, or it's just like your coworker who isn't in the know. What's that way you describe Heart to Gold?
I think more often than not, I'm quick to jump to the diversion tactic, where I bring something else up so they don't remember us talking about it for a second. But I think I describe it as like a punk rock alternative rock band with certain influences. And you would be surprised, like sometimes people that just don't really get it, they don't get it to the point where they don't even understand that you're playing music live, like with instruments. Like sometimes I don't know, I've had many people just be like, you actually play your music like live, like you go on stage and you play. And then I'll be like, yeah. But yeah, I would describe it as just like energetic punk rock stuff.
Okay. That is always, it's funny that you always hear about the people who are like, oh, they have like a laptop that controls lights, they're not a real rock and roll band. That's not how AC/DC did it back in the day. You're just like, no, we go on stage and we play tunes. It is always, but so yeah, talk to me. I know you've, over the years and other kind of interviews and kind of stuff you've done, talked about the history of the band, so we don't have to get into it. But for those who don't know, kind of how did Heart to Gold form, and kind of talk to me about those beginnings a little bit.
So Heart to Gold started. The idea started when this like phrase Heart to Gold came upon me, and then as time went on, I had always envisioned, like my younger self, I kind of envisioned like this band project, and that it would be called Heart to Gold. It wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I actually like started writing a couple songs with my friend Sidian.
Okay.
And I just wrote songs on guitar and sang them, and he started playing bass. And so we made like a Ramones style, Germs-esque, just like really easy punk rock. sound. And that was in maybe 2015,
Okay.
because that's when we put out our first EP. Yeah, and it all kind of just like started really quick. It was just like Sid and I maybe jammed in his basement for like a year, and then a I had another friend that I grew up jamming with who was a drummer,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just like it ended up where he just kind of like didn't think that it would be taken as serious as we wanted to take it. But I started showing Sid these songs and learning them with him, and then I started showing, his name is Jack, the original drummer. I started showing him the same songs and having him learning the drums, and then I brought them together, and we just basically already knew the songs. There
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like a whole jamming chemistry thing that needed to happen.
Yeah.
And then right away we all moved to Red Wing, because I went to like a guitar luthier program
Oh yeah,
to like
yeah.
build certain instruments, and we all just like felt really passionate about the band thing. So we just all moved to Red Wing, and we all did like a year of community college in Red Wing. And that's where the band like actually got its like kinks worked out,
Mm.
between the three of us at the time. And there was even another person involved. His name is Michael. And he was playing bass for us when Sid had like just dropped out for a second. And yeah, that's just basically how it started. And then I knew my friend Eric Paulson. I had like gone to shows, I guess, but
Yeah.
um, it was not necessarily cloudy, but like I said, it all happened so fast. Like
Mm-hmm.
I started going to shows, like particularly this one scene specific to like super early Remo Drive, this band called Pierre.
Yep.
Um,
Okay.
and they were in a weird way, like in this bubble that was centered around this band called Molly's Worst Enemy.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard of that band, but
I have. Yeah.
they had like this whole, the typical like punk adjacent emo hardcore combination DIY scene that like you would envision in a storybook. That
Mm-hmm.
was like what that like group uh consisted of. It was like this, at least to me when it first
Mm.
started, it was like this just counterculture to the T from where I like came from.
Yeah.
And I remember just like not knowing anybody and going to these shows and just putting my hood up and feeling a sense of like empowerment from the camaraderie and antics that like you could do at these shows, like stage diving and crowd
Mm-hmm.
surfing. And if you learn the lyrics, like, you could grab the microphone, and it was like these events were like, they were super sentimental,
Yeah.
um, formative into like the jumpstart direction that I thought music was supposed to be about.
Mm-hmm. There's
Um,
there's something about when you like going to a basement show and being on the same level as the band you're seeing, and like these dudes are always so cool and they're playing some awesome music, and you're just like looking them right in the eyes from there. And like you said, if you knew the lyrics, you can grab the microphone. There's a certain intimacy and like level of they're your peer, when you're there.
Very well said. Yeah, it's quite the conundrum, isn't it? Like you
Yeah.
have to you truly have to like um if that's like going out of your comfort zone, you truly have to do that to
Mm-hmm.
experience it. And then once you do, it's just like it opens up a whole new can of worms of, like I said, like what music can be from that point on. And yeah, it was definitely, we were influenced by that. And we just like leapt at the idea of being able to um, be like contemporaries, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would
Yeah.
put it that way, but it's just like, to us it was like that. It was like we're living in that shadow for like our jump start, because that's what we want to do. We want to achieve like what we feel like they have,
Mm-hmm.
and that's like packing out the basement shows and just like having this network of people that I didn't know at the time but they all knew each other, and it was like this. It wasn't even like a cool kids club even.
Yeah.
It was like very, very inclusive and very, very like cool. It was fun to be there and do that. And we just I met Eric Paulson early on, and we became really, really good friends. And then I found out that he was recording stuff, and he recorded like the first Heart to Gold EP. And then from then on, it was like I don't know, some people in that scene like made us feel really confident that it was a worthwhile pursuit, and we just kept doing it. And then we played show after show, and yeah, snowball effect, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Because I learned about you, post Still Stuck, pre-comp, and so just kind of like by that point, to me, you guys were already this, this band that was touring, and you were grinding it out, and you were like the DIY band, one of the DIY bands that I knew of that was like doing it. It wasn't just local shows and playing every weekend somewhere, but you were out and about, and you were living the dream almost.
Yeah, the quote unquote living the dream. It is really, really cool. And yeah, like I said, we didn't waste any time. We kind of just knew that was what we were supposed to do. I guess we never all really like talked about it, but it just seemed like like you said, like you're doing it. If you're gonna do it, like go eat some dirt and fail a little bit and feel these various emotions that go into touring and doing it,
Yeah. When you were living in Red Wing, were you guys playing shows in Red Wing, or was that more of just like an incubation period for you guys to just kind of figure out how you guys played together?
It was more of an incubation period, but we did play our very first ever show in Red Wing. It's funny. I swear we played with Abe Anderson.
Okay.
He was like in this other rock band that played in this like weird garage meets warehouse space in Red Wing. And I don't know, they probably remember more about it, but and before that I played a solo set at Fair Trade Books.
Okay.
And we actually did play this weird situation of like a full band show at that same bookstore, but that's like a totally different story. Okay. I think more than not, we were definitely like just experimenting and going to school and living on our own for the first time. And that's where I really found my love for playing guitar more than anything. I thought that everybody at my school was going to be a virtuoso at playing guitar because they wanted to go build them,
Yeah.
But then I got praised really quick with my shitty guitar playing, and then I realized like, oh, all these people are like carpenters, these are craftsmen, and that's who you want building your guitars. You don't want a dude that wants to pick it up and play it all the time. And that period is an interesting point.
Yeah. Do you still build and do luthier work, or is that kind of gone by the wayside as you have been?
It's definitely gone by the wayside. I don't like the idea and the pressure that comes with like, some people treat their instruments like it's their child.
Yeah.
And it's really, really easy to devalue an instrument, especially like with chisels and cutting and wood and the various factors. And it's really, really expensive to try and make your own instruments.
Yeah.
There's a dream scenario that's still in the cards at some point, but no, I don't do any of that. I can do a setup.
Yeah.
I'm much more of a player.
Totally. No, totally. So I want to jump forward. We don't have to talk about Comp or Tom. I do want to talk about the new record, which comes out November 15th, which is Free Help. And it does follow up that sophomore release, which is Tom. And one of the things I noticed was there's a much shorter time period between the release of Tom and Free Help comparatively to that first record and Tom, which I do want to be fair. There was like a whole pandemic that stopped the world in between those two records. But how like what was that time frame like between Tom and the new one? Were you writing right away after the release of your sophomore record, or kind of what were you doing as a band as you were getting ready to put these songs together?
So Tom came out, or Tom was ready to come out, and we had recorded it over the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and things were starting to, like, shows started happening again.
Yeah.
And I had just recovered from this really, really like life-halting accident that I was a part of, and I really like hurt my arm.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a whole lot of writing happening during that period, but that was like the minute that Tom was finally finished recording, like the recording process was finished. So I don't think that I started like actually trying to write songs until I had like gotten through the vast majority of my accident stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Uptown, and I think the process just kind of came like really, really naturally, and like just not really, I didn't even think that I'm writing songs for like a new record.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that like Tom happened to be picked up by the label that's putting out this new album, Memory Music, and Tom was like the first of a 2-album deal. So that being said, it was kind of like, okay, well, we're putting out Tom, but like the real thing that we're looking forward to is like getting in the studio with Will. And so I think for Tom, there might have been like a few ideas floating around that made its way to the Free Help timeline, but I think it was really separate because of the arm stuff. So when I started, when we put out Tom and everything started working for us as a band where we could play live again and we were touring, I think just certain ideas were happening based off of like certain music that we were like all getting into, or I guess just like the process started then, and that was probably 2022.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling on a little bit because I'm also trying to think about it. But
yeah, no, totally.
I guess what was the main question?
I was just talking about, there's just that time period where the writing kind of really started for you.
For Free Help, I would say like at the end of 2022, 2023, there was a shift in the band as Sid just like wanted to pursue different things.
Yeah.
And I think at that point in time, there was probably like 3 or 4 songs that we were like, here's at least 3 new songs that we have as a band, with no direction in sight with what those would end up being or becoming. And yeah, that time was really, really, really cool. I was just living in Uptown and living with friends and skateboarding a lot. I don't know. I feel like I'm doing the exact same thing that I'm doing now. It's just like I was just listening to certain music, and as time would come on, like I pick up the guitar, and that was also like my form of physical therapy. So I started playing guitar more than ever when I like got the good to go.
Yeah.
And I think I just I would bring a cool idea to Blake and Jim, who play in Heart to Gold. And before we knew it, we had 12 songs, and it was like, oh shit, like maybe we should like put this out. Maybe we should like bring these ideas to see if it's what we want to do, you know?
Yeah.
And then it just kind of happened that way. I feel like we're one of those bands where more often than not, the majority of what we make, we kind of just want to put it out because you never know who's gonna like it. So there was never like any concrete deadline or timeline for anything. It was very, very just a sudden realization, like, oh, we have a full record. Let's go record it, I guess.
Yeah. So I did notice that like Chloe was a song you released kind of as a standalone on Bandcamp. Was that one of those songs written? Because there's 12 songs on Free Help. There's 10.
Okay, so we went to the studio and we recorded 12 songs.
Mm-hmm.
And Chloe, and another song that didn't make the album, they occupied in my head like the 11th and 12th. What I'm getting at is, so we went to Philly for a month that summer that Chloe came out.
Okay.
So that's where we recorded basically like all the instrumental portion of the record for Free Help.
Mm-hmm.
And we only finished 2 songs vocally, and that was Chloe and Can't Feel Me. So I went back that following December and I finished the vocals for all the other songs, but Chloe was like that was just like the first track that came out as like a test run, like here's like the first song that we did with Will.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time it was pretty we were all convinced that like Chloe was going to make the record.
Mm-hmm.
But as time just went on, we had the opportunity to like redo a couple, or not redo, but just add certain things, like more textured guitar work to the following songs, like Can't Feel Me and the rest of the record, where it almost made Chloe unintentionally feel like an outlier.
Gotcha.
So that's why Chloe didn't make the record. But yeah, Chloe is still like one of our favorite songs to play live. That, like, I remember doing that in the studio and thinking like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Like, you want me to like do that?
Yeah. And
now I'm doing it for fun every single night when we play.
Hell yeah.
It's just like a super, super great song to me.
Yeah.
I wish that it got maybe like I wish it wasn't a solo outlier song.
Yeah.
But it like gives it character. Like, we all know a song like that we love from bands and stuff, and we're still pushing it and playing it.
Yeah. It's cool to be like, have one for the real heads to be like, because I think it's only on Bandcamp. Maybe it's on Spotify and I missed it. But just being like, this is the other one that people need to listen to more, you know?
Yeah. Like you said, the real heads. We always appreciate when people are like, Chloe. It's a good song.
Yeah.
I like that song.
I did want to back up for 1 second. We don't have to talk about like the accident or like what happened to your arm too much, but like, what was it like to be able to play guitar again as someone who was so dedicated to your instrument and being able to step on stage for you? How was that kind of time when you could realize, okay, I'm good at playing guitar again, I can move on and I can be back doing what I love?
I definitely didn't like praise myself too much on it.
Yeah.
It was my own stupid fault for getting me in that mix anyway. And I definitely am very fortunate, and I will never take that for granted. Shout out to like everybody that helped me, from the hospitals and the surgeons to anybody that like donated to the GoFundMe and just made the whole process like as easy as it probably could have been. It felt really good. I remember when we played the old comeback show.
Yeah.
Honestly, that is the reason why we got even under the microscope of certain people and got to work with labels and different people. That night, that evening is the reason why a lot of stuff started, I guess, quote unquote, like feeling good or working out for us like from a game playing industry perspective as a band.
Yeah.
It felt good. It's like not everybody's that lucky to have something like that happen and make it out on the other side. And I'm just like super fortunate to be here at all, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. And so moving along, I want to talk about kind of the album, you know, itself and kind of what you were writing about here. What were you kind of putting into these songs as you were, you know, working them out? To me, it feels like almost a continuation of the themes we hear on Tom as a listener, but almost with a little bit of like age and experience that comes and the retrospection that comes with it. So I just kind of wanted you to talk to me a little bit about kind of that, and as a songwriter, what you were kind of working on and working through.
I think as like creating music goes, like Pre-Help's focus was a lot more on the sonics of everything versus having something super concrete and direct.
Okay.
As far as like song meanings, I've always like tried to more often than not try and write something that wasn't super like it has like a very concrete concept or meaning.
Okay.
Like I like the idea of like a song or a piece of art being able to have different interpretations and different meanings to people, and maybe disguising lyrical content in metaphors and stuff like that, where it can mean different things to different people at different times, and it can change for somebody over time. And I know like certain concept and things that are super direct, they can do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think less about that aspect of the perfect songwriting concoction.
Yeah.
More than like the sonics and the feeling that I'm feeling when I'm physically doing it and playing it. And those can be like obviously super hard to translate, right? Like to a product that you're listening to, because it all comes out the same. Like, you know, you hear a person's song and you're like, oh, what's that about? Instead of being like, oh, it's not supposed to be about anything, you know, like I'm sure there are a lot of people that think there's like a lot of thought and wordplay that goes into things, but it's more often than I'm just like singing, and I hit this kind of like harmony that's like repeating in my head, and in the moment is when I have to put it down in permanence more often, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. It's trying to capture lightning in a bottle that kind of, as a band such as yours, I feel like is probably really hard to do something that translates to a Heart to Gold live show and all of the emotion and kind of energy that comes with it, and then put it on record. And either you have people who only know the record and then see you live, or for a lot of people, maybe they've seen you live for the first time and then you go to the record and try and find it there as well. I can think of myself as someone who's like, I've only heard a band a certain way, and then I finally get the studio copy, and you're just like, this is not what I'm thinking, whether it's the sonics or even just like hearing the contents of a song in a more controlled environment.
Yeah. It all gets so confusing, you know, like at the end of the day, I've realized this is that for me, I really just like to sing and play guitar, in solitude, with people, around people, and trying to perfectly match something that I know is never going to happen, you know, like the live show to the physical recording. It's never going to be the way that I really feel like it has to be. And I'm okay with that. Like I'm open to creating something that is, in my opinion, like maybe not perfect. Cause then it's just like, I mean, what is it, the pinnacle of anything you're ever going to do? Like, why set yourself up for that? Like, I think that Free Help is definitely like, there's some lingering, like, thoughts and feelings and emotions that are obviously trying to be portrayed, but it is, like you said, like it's more mature.
Mm.
And the way that I kind of put it is that comp was like our, after you get enough time to like look at things from a perspective that's a little different than when you first wrote it, like comp is our wannabe like jank album. And then Tom is like the wannabe like Fall Out Boy album.
Okay.
I know it's silly, but just like, give some old Fall Out Boy records a spin and like tap into Tom, and maybe you'll might be able to feel what I'm saying. I could be full of shit. And then Free Help is like, I don't really have that understanding yet,
Okay. Yeah, you'll have to give it a year or two and find that parallel for you.
Yeah.
And so then moving on, I kind of wanted to, you said Chloe was the first song you had worked with Will Yip on in the studio, right?
Mm-hmm. We did do some live, like acoustic versions of the singles from Tom. That's when we first met the Memory people, and we got to visit Philly.
Mm-hmm.
When other than being there on tour.
Yeah.
But Chloe was like the first song that we were in the studio, or like that came out from the studio time.
What was it like going into this studio with Will then, not in the like the acoustic EP for songs you had put together and had released, I believe, at that point? What was it like then going into Studio 4 with Will to make this record and sit down with him person to person and produce it?
It's pretty weird, considering that like Comp and Tom we did with one person.
Yeah.
We did it with Eric, and Eric was awesome. Mm-hmm. It was just we would have like, if we didn't ever like meet Will or anybody at Studio 4, we probably would have went through Eric, but Eric moved from Minnesota to New York. So it was just, we were just kind of like, okay, whatever. And then it just so happened that like another producer, engineer friend was like, yeah, let's make a record. And it was like, all of a sudden, like, oh, it's at Studio 4 with Will Yip. And it was like, I mean, I know who that is. That's why I thought it was like super special. And
yeah.
I'll make a fucking record with Will Yip, like what? Of course, you know.
Like, is that even a question? Like,
yeah, I would do it with like, I was very keen on like, yeah, I'll make a record with Will Yip. Like that dude is very, very cool and very, very smart, and has made a lot of influential pieces of work, and contributed to so many other things. So going in there, it was like it was almost like damn near my very first like studio experience. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people get that like type of thing out of the way, where they book like studio time somewhere, and then they might find a producer or somebody that they are paying to like work on their stuff with them,
Yeah.
I think some people are pretty good about getting that experience out of the way. And it's like, I've been in the studio element, like I've been to studios, but I've never had like a really like a true studio experience where I'm like touching various pieces of gear and like coming to every single day, and like making something from the ground up in this studio, so it was pretty weird, but it was like, it wasn't like scary,
Yeah.
It was like, we had like gotten a little bit of formality stuff out with Will and Tim through video calls and stuff. So we kind of like, and like, they're real people, like they're not just like people that are like, you don't talk to them until you work with them. Mm-hmm. So we were like, because they run the label. So they were like putting out Tom, and we had like gone through like the whole campaign with them before we ever met them, So we had a lot of formality, and then when we met, it was like the embrace was great. Like they're awesome people, awesome to be around. But it is kind of like, yo, shit, like these people are for real.
Yeah.
Like everybody has like a studio friend or somebody that does things in a studio, but there's like a difference in like somebody who like has their entire life is revolved around this is their career. It's not just like their hobby and then they have day jobs like a lot of people that we both know.
Yeah.
And like you can get quality stuff out of both, but it was just like you knew that like there was a job to do. It wasn't always like we're just shooting the shit and having like Dragon Ball Z monologue days, you know.
Yeah.
We had to do something every single day, and you had to be ready, you had to be like be prepared, and be professional, but also like not, you know.
Yeah.
Great. It was cool. It was different though, for sure.
Yeah, because you had said that you spent about a month for the original in Philly for the original kind of recording process.
Yep. And it was in the summer, and we stared at this Airbnb 5 minutes, 10 minutes away from the studio. So we would walk there in the morning, and we spent damn near all day, every day there. Could have spent more time there, you know?
Yeah. It kind of falls in line with just this like work ethic that I get from you talking about just wanting to do the next thing and push the next thing, is having that ability to live in a true like work environment when it comes to music production.
That's like a hyperbolic time chamber. Not to like go into the DBZ shit, but like it is like you go in there and there's no windows anywhere, and then you come out and you're like, "Whoa, it's raining outside."
Yeah,
like the air is different here. It really is it's like a different tier of anything that we were ever experienced.
Yeah. And just kind of moving away then as we kind of wind down into my final few questions here. And I do, this is a bit of a broad question that we've kind of talked about already, but as a band who's had such a career as you, and you still have a lot of time to grow and do some really cool things, how do you look back on those early days as Heart to Gold, where you're like grinding it out? Like, do you sometimes have those moments of, man, we used to just like be some like local punk kids, and now we're, you know, touring all the time and we're doing this stuff? What's that look like?
Dude, it is the same as it was before.
Really?
Like, oh, dude. I mean, like being in a basement locally, that comparison is definitely different. But dude, we do that shit in a different state, and it's the same thing as it is or was here, you know.
Interesting. Okay.
I think like we have spent a lot of time doing this band shit, but like our values and our thought processes on all that stuff is very, very similar to as it was when it first started in those early days. I look back at some things as being like, damn, like why did I do it that way? But I also like am super honored to like have anybody have taken any of that serious and care at all, you know, like come to a show and like have anything kind to say. I look back on that stuff and I think that it is very, very valuable, and it's a great batch of memories that are still happening, you know, like in however long in this, I'll look back at this period and probably like blend them all together, maybe how I am right now. Like it's cool, you know, looking back on stuff. And yeah, I guess like we almost have been a band for a little bit shy of like 8 years. And I think like obviously like the early touring days, you know, the world is your oyster. You know, every different place is so different, but then when you're in the States and you tour that place more than once in a year or something, it all kind of starts to feel the same, you know.
Yeah.
The ocean is still amazing to see.
Mhm.
The great beauties of different places are still awesome to see. As far as cities go, though, for me personally, like I know the difference between the East Coast and then the West Coast, but like a lot of major cities, they're all the same, you know?
Yeah, you kind of have the same vibe, and I feel like people don't understand that touring is also just kind of a job, and so it's not
You're
like
just
you.
a circus, you know? Like you're just a traveling circus sometimes.
Yeah. And do you think, as a band who kind of has still attacked everything from that same mindset, is kind of lent itself to your longevity and just how everything can continue to snowball for you?
Uh, I'm sure it does to the right person or to the right powers that be,
Yeah.
but um it's all about just like how much you want to play the game.
Mm.
Like there's this game that in this dance that you do with how serious you're taking yourself and your art and what your goals or what you think are your goals and how like impractical you ultimately convince yourself some of that stuff is.
Hmm.
And when you really just take it all away and just look at it as like I'm just still trying. I'm just trying to do stuff with music.
Hmm.
Like some people are really good about like getting their eggs in so many different baskets as far as like their art and their creativity goes, where like you have some people that play in live bands and then they have a studio at home and they're always making music, and then you have people who are playing in bands and then they're doing tour management and they're doing like they're placing so many parts of themselves all over the place, and it's perfect for them, you know.
Mm.
But for us, it has always just been like, yo, like, what makes us feel better? Like trying to, I don't know, play the game, quote unquote, or playing music like with each other and in the variety of settings, you know, basements, music halls, stuff like that. Like there's I don't know. I've had the worst rambling sessions on this podcast ever, but
No,
I do
no,
think
it's been great.
there's some truth to it where it's
Yeah.
just like to answer your question, I do think there is something to be said about like, you know, that cross between like work ethic and drive and
Mhm.
values and stuff like that. But um I have always looked at it as just like I'm just trying, and like I've
Mhm.
been very fortunate to like meet people who like dig what I'm a part of and what I'm trying to contribute to in this wild world that we live in. And it's kind of sick, you know, like
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
No, totally. And then
I know I have like a surfer vibe, like Kai the hitchhiker vibe, but like I swear
no,
I'm onto something.
no, totally. It's so much of it like working in any kind of like music, media, that kind of world is taking what you can get and then just hoping that the next thing comes because people dig what you do. And you've just been, people are just you've been very lucky, and it's been awesome.
Yeah. I think if there's advice, if there's unwarranted advice,
Mhm.
it's like go and do it.
Yeah.
Just go and do it. Like find what you like about all of this. Find where you feel your time, your limited time is of worthwhile, you know?
Yeah.
And for us, that was like going somewhere and playing and just playing as much as possible. And now you deal with all these things like radius clause and
Hmm.
different things where like you can't just like that's part of playing the game. And when in DIY, you can kind of just do whatever you want and there are no rules.
Yeah.
So long as you don't let there be rules, you
Hmm.
know? And I think that like that's what we've been super passionate about is just moving, like keeping it moving,
Hmm.
keeping things like fresh and special to us,
Yeah.
you know? it can be really hard for everybody to like always be on the same page of everything. We're fortunate to like only really have the three of us, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're just it's a little bit easier in that way for us to all just like be on the same page and be hyped about what we're doing.
Totally. Last questions here, which is kind of what's next for the band? What can we expect? You have the album coming out on November 15th, so just in a few days from us recording this, and you got a release show coming up in December?
Yeah, December 14th, all ages at the Fine Line. I should probably plug that.
Yeah, no, totally.
It's with Gully Boys, and it's with a band called Grandma and another band called Scrunchies, and they're all really important to us as a band.
Yeah. And then we always like to leave a section for band shout outs, where you've been out and about. You got, whether it's the homies here locally or really cool bands you've toured with or played with that people should know about here. Sometimes people like to pull out their Spotify playlists quick to try and see, but kind of who are some bands people should know about?
There are two bands that come to mind as just like very, very both formidable experiences and also just like the greatest friends. One of those bands is Modern Color. That band is like awesome. We've been fortunate to like tour with them and just keep a good relationship with them. Another band is Mannequin Pussy. I know like both of these bands are like huge right now, but like I love those bands. I love those people. Prince Daddy and the Hyena, my fam Cameron. I love that. I love that band. Some bands that you need to check out from Minnesota is a band called Berzica.
Okay.
That band is really, really, really sick, and definitely just like bringing some energy to the shoegaze phase happening. You know, like they got a lot of energy, and they really sonically did it for me. That band's cool. Who else? Who are some? Oh, Aren't We Amphibians from California? That band is super cool. Anybody like reverting back to like the Scrams side of punk rock? That wave is kind of hot right now. Like Ben Quad, that shit's fucking sick. Honestly, I love my fam and Grandma. Casual.
Yeah.
That band is like has always been super special to me. And there's a band called Dark Thoughts that I think everybody should listen to. Yeah, that band's great.
Awesome. And then where can people keep up to date with all things Heart to Gold? You know, where can they see what's next, what shows are next, what tours are next? Where is the spot they should check out?
They should probably shamefully check out our Instagram. That's probably like the most up to date, latest and greatest from Heart to Gold. We do have a website, you know, it's kind of weird, but it, you know, you can go to hearttogold.com too. And that's really it. Yeah. We should probably start doing like a fanzine or kind of like more ears to the ground kind of work.
Absolutely. Well, Free Help is out on November 15th. You can purchase vinyl through the Memory Music website. Congrats on the new record, Grant. It's so good, and people need to check it out as soon as possible. I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with me today.
Thanks. No, thank you so much. It's great. It's been great. You're great.
You have been listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share so you can stand out against the sea of other music podcasts. You can find information and other important links in the show notes of this episode. If you would like to support us, please consider subscribing on Patreon for early access to live sessions and other bonus content. You can also subscribe to our Substack for a regular newsletter with reviews, ramblings, and anything else we have to say. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.